That moment when you realize your skincare is actually working. That's Rodan & Fields, the #1 female dermatologist-founded skincare brand in the U.S. Designed by 2 dermatologists who don't just know women's skin, they know how to formulate for it. Rodan & Fields, love what you see. Tap the banner or visit rodanandfields.com/Spotify to get your exclusive welcome offer.
This is Cop Talk, talking crime, cases, and backing the blue. Now, here are your hosts, Captain Ed Mehmet and Detective Kevin Schroeder.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cop Talk. My name is Kevin Schroeder, retired NYPD detective. I'm here with my co-host, retired captain of NYPD, Ed Mehmet.
Hello, WABC listeners. We have another great interview today, so we're looking forward to this interview.
Today's guest on Cop Talk is Deroy Murdock. Deroy is a contributor to the New York Post, Fox News, National Review, and other major outlets. He's been a media fellow with the Hoover Institution on War, Revolution, and Peace at Stanford University. He's also a senior fellow with the free market think tank, the Atlas Network. He's a very huge supporter of law enforcement, outspoken critic against the Defund the Police movement. He's also co-wrote Trump Should Exempt Police from Federal Income Taxes with our own Joe Diamond. Deroy, welcome to the show.
Kevin, it's great to be with you and also with Ed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
You bet.
Deroy, would you tell us about your background as a commentator on politics and public policies?
Sure, I'll do that. But first, let me begin by thanking both of you for your service to the city of New York, for your excellent work in law enforcement, and also salute all those people out there in blue in New York and across the country who are putting their lives on the line every day to keep us safe and secure.
No, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. As for my career as a commentator, I've been doing this a long time. I've been writing editorial pieces, opinion pieces, all the way back to 9th grade. I was editor-in-chief of my junior high school paper at Paul Revere Junior High School in Los Angeles. I was on the tide line at Palisades High School in Pacific Palisades, California. I was not on the staff, but I wrote for the Hoya at Georgetown. I was senior editor of opportunity at NYU Business School. And I started writing opinion pieces for the first non-school paper for which I wrote was the Washington Times. A wonderful man named William Shesher was the editorial page editor there. I met him at CPAC, I think 85 or so, and told him that I was writing pieces for the Hoya. Would he consider running pieces by yours truly? He said, "Great, send me something. I'll take a look." So, like we did back then, I wrote a piece. Typed it, printed it out, put it in the mail with a postage stamp, and sent it to the Washington Times. And about 3 or 4 days later, it was in the Washington Times. I sent him another one. He ran that, and that was the first major non-scholastic publication for which I wrote. And I've been writing opinion pieces ever since. And I do a column every week called "This Opinion Just In." I usually write another 1 or 2 pieces as well. If it's around election time, it might be 4 or 5 pieces. And I'm on air as a Fox News contributor, as you said. I'm usually on about 2, 3, 4 times a week, and very happy to be part of the national conversation.
Now, you and Joe Diamond, one of our own, he's our producer here at WABC Radio for our podcast, Cop Talk. You guys wrote a recent article for the Daily Caller and also Newsmax, and it was called "Tax Break for Cops." Could you tell us about that? Sure.
Joe came to me with this idea, which I thought was an excellent one, which is to do something to try to reverse the tremendous damage that defund the police movement has done over the last 3 or so years, not just in removing badly needed resources from police departments, but the tremendous decrease in morale of demonizing cops, diminishing them, attacking them as racists and evil people, and on and on and on. As a consequence of all this, we've seen tremendous decimation in police departments across the country. We've seen a drop in the number of people retiring, or I should say, an increase in the retirements in police departments from 2019 to 2022, 19% increase in retirements, 47% increase in resignations. Part of the reason for the explosion in crime is we just have so many fewer cops on the streets. One really simple and I think very intelligent way to turn this around is to say that we should treat our cops in America the same way we treat our combat GIs, which is that their combat pay should be exempt from federal tax. So if you're a cop working in America, You'll have to pay local tax and state tax, but you would be excused from federal tax. That would be a huge incentive for people to join police forces, stay on police forces, delay retirement. It would give them a shot in the arm. It would basically give a big pat on the back to every cop around across America, saying, we have your backs, we appreciate you, we value what you do, and we're going to try to make it easier for you to take care of yourself, your family, your loved ones. And I think exempting them from federal tax would be a very smart way to do it.
What was the reaction to your article?
Well, mixed. There were obviously people who think that was a great idea and a really good way to accomplish what we want to do in terms of increasing the appreciation of law enforcement. First question people ask is, well, this is going to cost a lot of money. We can't afford this. Now, it would cost about roughly $7,200 in federal taxes on average for cops who make about $58,000, which is a median salary for most cops. But according to Princeton economics researcher Stephen Mello, he estimated in 2019, and I'm quoting, each additional sworn officer reduces victimization costs by about $352,000. So in other words, for about $7,200 in lost income tax, you gain $352,000 in victimization costs that are foregone. That seems like a real bargain to me. The other argument you get is, well, if once we give this to cops, then we got to give it to firefighters, we got to give it to ambulance drivers, so on and so on. We can debate that down the road, but I think right now we have a huge problem with people being killed across this country, violent crime, nonviolent crime all over the place. We need to address that very quickly. We could debate whether we do or don't extend this to others, but let's at least get this done quickly and stop the bloodshed and the mayhem and the chaos across the country.
There's hypocrisy in one of those arguments. They're willing to give the tax break to people who have college loans and just wipe them out, but yet they're not willing, these people who are critical of the plan are not willing to give cops a tax incentive. At least the cops are working and protecting them.
Yeah, that's
a lot
right.
of these people are students. They're not really protecting the police. So I mean, these things, that bugs me.
No, this is true. I mean, look, you can be a decent law-abiding person who's paying off student loans, and Joe Biden comes in and says, "Don't worry, we'll take care of that for you." But you're right; you're not necessarily protecting the public. Number one, number two, think about the people getting lots of money, like the people who are in free hotel rooms in Times Square. They're not cops. They're not even American citizens with student loans. These are people who broke into our country. The first thing they did when they entered America was break federal law. They invaded our country, and guess what? Free hotel rooms, free medical care, free education for their kids. So the people who are complaining, $7,200 for cops, we can't afford that. They're more than happy to shell out. I think it's now running $85,000 per legal alien coming to New York City. They're okay with that, but screw the cops, and that's unfortunately the attitude of the left in this country these days.
Right. Well, that's why we're here and why we're talking to you. Now, getting back to the tax break. President Trump has a tough campaign related to public safety. Do you think that he would be behind this tax break?
I can't speak for him, but I think if he'd certainly be open to looking at it. I don't think he'd reject it outright. He certainly is pro-law enforcement. There's no question that he is somebody who appreciates and values and encourages people in the law enforcement community across the country. He's also a big tax cutter. I mean, he's responsible for the biggest tax cut in American history. We have one of the reasons this economy is moving forward at all is that Joe Biden has not managed to kill the Trump tax cuts, especially 21% corporate tax rate, which is the lowest we've seen in decades. Maybe in our lifetimes. And so as somebody who's pro-law enforcement and pro-tax cut, I imagine that Donald J. Trump would at least take a serious look at this idea, if not implement it.
In your article, you wrote that if Trump wins in a close race, there could be massive unrest in this country. Could you explain that?
Sure. It's interesting that Democrats talk about, election denial and Republicans are against democracy and they won't accept the legitimate results of an election. These are the same people, not 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 50 years ago, just 4 years ago, 4 years before the 2020 election, 2016, who did not accept the idea that Donald J. Trump won legally. They said it must be stolen, it must be Russian bots, or must be Russian Kremlin involvement, et cetera. And the same people who yell and scream and yell about Republican election denial were running around the streets, breaking windows, setting cars on fire, engaging in all sorts of riots and other violence. They also ran around, as you may recall, Martin Sheen and Noah Wiley and other celebrities set up this organization where they were pressuring electors in the Electoral College to ignore the votes of their states and then go and vote against Trump and for Hillary Clinton. This is going on at the same time Democrats are attacking Trump because he basically did the same thing, trying to encourage electors who he thought were his to vote for him rather than for Hillary Clinton. But when he does it, it's an attack on democracy conspiracy. He needs to be indicted. When the Democrats do it, it's just public policy. And so that's my fear is I'm hoping that Donald J. Trump is elected in November 2024. But even if he wins in a landslide, I think the left will scream and yell. Certainly if it's a close election, I think that they will express their displeasure by going out in the streets and doing what they do best, which is engaging in the same political violence that they accuse Republicans of doing.
Well, that's the state of affairs today in this country.
Yeah, it's the magic of psychological projection, which is one of the chief motivators of the Democrat Party today.
Let's go on to a more local issue. My favorite topic, our alleged mayor, Eric Adams, who I had the displeasure of working with years ago. You say you're very critical of him, and you say that he's a threat to public safety, something like that. Can you elaborate?
Sure. I think a lot of people expected Eric Adams, as a former cop, to come in and be a very strong pro-law enforcement, pro-police kind of mayor. He's certainly an improvement over Bill de Blasio, who I think is basically a communist. I mean, if I remember correctly, I believe he honeymooned in Cuba and then spent a lot of time hanging out with the Ortegas in Nicaragua. I mean, this man is a full-blown Marxist. So Eric Adams is an improvement over that, but he comes very, very, very falls short of being a Rudy Giuliani type who believes in community policing, broken windows theory, that sort of thing. One simple thing he could have done, which I don't believe he's done, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but during the whole George Floyd riot situation, we disbanded the undercover police force.
Anti-crime units.
Correct. I remember walking down the street down 6th Avenue, probably sometime in the 90s. I can't give you the exact year, but I remember this very clearly. I was walking down the street. I see a yellow cab pull up to the curb. Some people who didn't look like cab drivers jumped out of the car, ran down the subway, and pulled somebody out. Some criminal was up to no good. I'm not sure what. And at the same time that happened, all these people walking down the street, some of them in suits, some of them dressed up in athletic wear, some of them dressed up looking like students, pull their badges out. It turns out these are cops. You could have paid me $100,000. I wouldn't be able to pick them out of a crowd. All of a sudden, these cops pop up out of nowhere. They were on the scene. Once the thing got taken care of, they put the perp in the cab/police car, drove away with him, and these people put their badges back in their shirts and disappeared and melted away, instantly invisible. I felt, first of all, surprised. I've never seen that before, number one. And number two, very comforted to know I'm walking down the street, there are cops all over the place. I have no idea who they are, and more importantly, the criminals don't know who they are. I would love to see that establishment or that unit put back into place. That would give me a real sense Eric Adams is making a big difference. As far as I know, he's not done that. That's to the massive detriment of the 8.5 million people in New York City.
Well, but de Blasio was the one who did that. He ordered that the precinct anti-crime units be abolished.
That's right. And Adams has not reinstated him, which I think
he's done something to that effect. He's created these neighborhood teams that's sort of a hybrid. But the problem is they're not in the mufti. They're wearing a uniform. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the element of surprise is lost on that.
You need the element of surprise, right?
But getting back to Eric Adams, I just want to point something out. He was not in the police department for 22 years. He was in the transit police for his first 11 years. And then when the merge took place in 1995, he came over to the police department as a sergeant. But he keeps saying he had 22 years in the department, and the news media keeps repeating that. It's not true.
Interesting.
And when he was in the transit, he didn't do very much. So his background is quite checkered. And I know quite a bit about him, and the public doesn't know this, but he does not have the experience or the management experience or the police experience that he claims to have.
I don't think Eric Adams is evil. My sense is he more or less has his heart in the right place, but he just strikes me as very weak and very ineffective, insufficiently tough. I think he's too nice. You can't be a nice guy and run New York City. Part of the reason Rudy Giuliani succeeded so well in New York City is he's a tough guy. Nobody ever said he was a pushover. Well, he can't be a pushover and run New York City. And I wish Eric Adams would get up every morning, take his SOB pills, and go to work. I think he'd be a much more effective mayor if he did that than being somebody who's sort of a little soft, a little pleasant, and maybe a bit
he's
warm and fuzzy.
Playing the politically correct game. He doesn't want to antagonize his base.
Correct. One place where he absolutely has failed, and he has to take full credit for this, is the way he's handled this illegal alien disaster. If I were mayor of New York City, I would have the police watching the bridges and tunnels, and as soon as these buses come in at these illegal aliens, I turn around and go home. And by the way, get to the Rio Grande and swim home and get the hell out of our country because you broke in here, you don't belong here. Instead, they're welcome here, and they're filling it. I think half the hotel rooms in New York City are filled with illegal aliens. Unbelievable. We're paying for all that ourselves here. The taxpayers are overburdened.
Well, let me tell you a major problem with this. When they get arrested, there's no database to check them against. So they have to be booked as John Does.
Unbelievable. We don't know who these people are.
And they get fingerprinted, and there's nothing to check against. And so what are they going to do in the court? Are they going to let him out with escapement tickets?
And these could be nice people who just want to work here. These could be vicious criminals who can't wait to slit somebody's throat. We have no idea. God knows we have the MS-13 guys, and they like to chop people's heads off for laughs. These are not nice folks. We have no idea what's coming across the country, across the border right now. Utter, total bedlam.
Now let's move on to Chicago. The mayor there, Brandon John, he says that a mob is just a large gathering.
Yes, this
politically correct terminology.
Yes, this is the wonderful mayor, Brandon Johnson of Chicago, who's so left-wing, I think he makes Lori Lightfoot look like Margaret Thatcher. I didn't think that was possible, but here we are. And there's this a bunch of kids, teenagers, looks like, I call them a mob, attacking it, looked like a convenience store, 7-Eleven, something like this. And some journalist said, what do you think about that mob situation? He said, oh, don't use that word. That's not the right word. It's a large gathering. Look, there's nothing wrong with calling a bunch of bad kids tearing up a convenience store a mob. And the mayor of Chicago, every mayor across America should be focused on how do we keep these people safe, protect people's lives, people's property, and not get caught up in well, is it a mob or a gathering? What's the right pronoun? What do we call these people? We're playing word games, and what we need is really to have the law enforced and to have public safety implemented.
Subtle results, still you, but with fewer lines. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
5 immersive worlds, 1 amazing theme park. Get ready to explore the all-new Universal Epic Universe, featuring the wizarding world of Harry Potter, Ministry of Magic, Super Nintendo World, How to Train Your Dragon, Isle of Berk, and Dark Universe. Epic Universe opens May 22nd at Universal Orlando Resort. Our universe will never be the same. Tickets and packages on sale now at universalorlando.com.
Deroy, getting back to the riots. So back in 1989, 1990, we had the Tompkins Square riots down in Tompkins Square Park. I was an anti-crime then, which was plain clothes, which they have not brought back yet. Like Ed said, they wear like a windbreaker. Basically, it's not totally plain clothes. With that said and done,
soft uniform.
Yes. So the anti-crime units would go down to Tompkins Square Park, and we'd get into the crowd. We'd be with the crowd, as if we were protesters. And then when we saw a perpetrator throw a bottle at a cop or a rock, whatever the case may have been, we'd follow that person. Observation, crime. We'd follow the person, and it could be an hour later, 2 hours later, till they went to the subway, and then we'd grab them before we went onto the train, and there you go. You're arrested for assault on a police officer. We didn't make the arrest right away because of the fact we had time. Time was on our side, and we had the observation, and we just made the arrest, and it was drawn up, and the assault charge stuck on a police officer. Today they're not doing that. I mean, unfortunately, anti-crimes are not in the as far as I know anyway. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's no arrest being made. As well as we have a mounted unit. The mounted unit is for riots and crowd control. And I believe the last thing we just had the other day down in Union Square Park, I believe mounted units responded, but I don't know if they were told not to do anything because they didn't do anything. So that's an unfortunate. That's a resource we could use, the New York City Police Department mounted unit.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something about being 5'10" or 6 feet tall and seeing a cop on a horse. Their combined height is probably, I'm going to guess, around 11 or 12 feet. That sends a message alone without the cop having to do anything. Right. You're standing there. There's a horse with a cop on top. You think, well, gee, I better get out of the way and try to behave myself. I live just below Union Square, a block and a half below Union Square, and I was actually on Friday trying to get to Fox News Channel to appear on Kudlow's show. And as I walked outside, I saw these cop cars going the wrong way against traffic, bedlam all over. And I got to the subway was closed. I had to contact my producer and say, I'm not going to make it to the studio in time. So I just went back home, stood on my balcony, just watched 4 helicopters overhead, a drone, smoke bombs, people running around all over. I mean, total chaos, total pandemonium, all over this effort by some so-called YouTube influencer to give away PlayStations. I mean, what a country we've turned into.
I was there also, by the way.
Amazing, absolutely amazing.
Were you,
Very entertaining.
Yeah, well, I was actually closer to it than you were.
Were you?
I was about 2 blocks away. You're about 3.
Yeah, well, no, a block and a half. But I actually walked up to 4th Ave, 14th, and saw the chaos. There was really quite something else.
Captain Ed, did you get your riot gear on and get down there and take care of business?
I don't have any. I figured I'd get a steel pot and a broomstick. But I knew something was going on when I saw the helicopter.
Yeah.
And then 3 helicopters.
Yeah, a lot of helicopters. I will say I was very impressed within probably about half an hour of when I saw it starting in around 4 o'clock or so. There were cops on the streets with batons with their riot helmets on. And again, just the visual of that, I think, got people to calm down and behave themselves, which is what we need. What we needed then and we need all the time.
I know, Deroy, I think you may have touched on this already, but there's a video out there of shoplifters brazenly robbing a 7-Eleven in California. Throwing merchandise in a garbage can and continue to go through the store, and then at which time the employees confront him, and now they're facing assault charges.
Yeah, astonishing. This happened, I think, in Stockton, California, and these are 2 Sikh gentlemen, I guess maybe of East Indian background, I suppose, East Asian anyhow. And this guy comes in, and a lot of people say, oh, the shoplifters, they just want to take care of their kids. So he wasn't stealing bread for his little girl at home. He had a trash can. He was going through the tobacco section and filling the trash can with tobacco, with cigarettes, the cigars, et cetera, and the whole time he's being totally brazen. You can't stop me. You can't do anything about this. Ha, ha, ha. Just mocking these store owners as he's cleaning out this merchandise, obviously to go. I don't think he's going to go smoke all this himself. He's probably going to go and fence these hot goods. And one of them took a stick and started beating him. And this guy didn't expect this. He got him on the ground and beat him with a looked like a mop handle or a broom handle, and got the guy to relent finally, which is what he should have done, and I'm glad he did. And now, unfortunately, it looks like the store owner may be facing assault charges. I think this is absolutely wrong. He had every right to defend his store, every right to defend his property, every right to attack this shoplifter. There's nothing cute about shoplifting. This is a thief. This guy probably is not, I'm guessing it's probably not the first time he's done it. We have people in this city who've been arrested for shoplifting, not once or twice or 3 times, but I saw one case 103 times. You'd think after like 30 or 40, the judge would say, all right, we need to lock you up, but you're all the way up to triple-digit arrests for shoplifting. I think we need to take this a step further. I favor a commercial or retail stand-your-ground law. Store owners should be able to use whatever force they need, including deadly force, to stop shoplifters. If that's what it takes to put an end to this shoplifting pandemic, so be it. And I think if we put 3 or 4 or 5 shoplifters into caskets, that will send a message, and this garbage will stop. And these people will do what the rest of us which is when you want to buy something, you get your wallet out, you pay for it. You don't just walk off with it. That's not cute. That's not funny. It's a national disaster. And I think using, again, whatever force is necessary, including deadly force, to put an end to this needs to happen right now. I favor a coast-to-coast states and cities should pass national retail and commercial stand-your-ground laws so we can put an end to this explosion of shoplifting across the country.
I agree. Captain?
In your latest article, you referred to the Justice Department as Biden's campaign headquarters. How do we clean up the Justice Department?
Boy, we have a huge cleanup job to do with the Department of Justice. So we were sort of talking before we got on the air here about the justice system, and I said to Kevin, I said, how are you enjoying our 2-track justice system? You know, why have a 1-track justice system when you have 2 and 2 for the price of 1, which is what we've got right now. And basically, if you're a Republican like Donald J. Trump, you'll be indicted. You'll face federal charges for all sorts of things. If you're a Democrat, you walk. And we see this over and over and over with the charges against Trump, for example, on the Mar-a-Lago business with the classified documents. You've got the FBI going in and raiding his home, going into his wife's closet and looking through her clothes, going into his son's room and all that. They get these documents, which the President of the United States, whether you like it or not, the President of the United States is allowed to have classified documents. That's part of the Presidential Records Act. Anyway, he gets indicted. Meanwhile, the FBI does not raid Joe Biden's house. He has classified documents sitting in his garage next to his Corvette, And rather than send the FBI in, they send in Joe Biden's own lawyers, and Joe Biden's own lawyers decide what is or is not classified, what should or should not be turned over. Wouldn't it be nice if Trump had had that kind of treatment? If Giuliani could have gone in and gone through these documents and decided what to turn over, what not to turn over. And then you see just the unbelievable treatment his son is getting, for example, with this plea deal, which unraveled a couple of weeks ago. But all of his involvement in tax evasion for 2014 and 2015, that was waived because the statute of limitations lapsed because the investigation was so slow. You have this incredible situation where you had the IRS was investigating Hunter, and they wanted to go in and get a search warrant to take a look at his storage locker in Northern Virginia. And this is IRS whistleblower Gary Shapley. He spoke before the House investigators, and he said that they were looking into getting a search warrant for this storage unit. However, Shapley told House investigators that DOJ prosecutor Leslie Wolf, I'm quoting, simply reached out to Hunter Biden's defense counsel and told him about the storage unit, once again ruining our chance to get to evidence before being destroyed, manipulated, or concealed, unquote. So you have a prosecutor at the Department of Justice contacting Hunter Biden's lawyer and saying, hey, by the way, the IRS might be coming in to check out your storage unit. You might want to do something about that. This is obstruction of justice in screaming bright red neon letters. This this Leslie Wolf, assistant U.S. attorney, should be in handcuffs right now under suspicion of obstruction of justice. So this is the kind of stuff we've got going on with Republicans being locked up, Democrats skating, and Department of Justice basically serving as the human shields for the Biden family. It is an awful situation, and this country is turning into Venezuela right before our eyes.
What do you think of the idea of the head of the Justice Department being elected? Now, I'll tell you why. If you look at the local government, the equivalent of the Justice Department at a low level would be the district attorneys. At the state level, it would be the Attorney General's office. These are elected officials. They're not appointed. Now, Colombia, the country of Colombia in South America, their Justice Department head is elected. Our situation here is that the head of the Justice Department is appointed by the president. Do you think that if we had an elected Justice Department official, it would be different because they would be independent of the president?
No, I don't favor that. It's an interesting idea, but it's not one I support. I think when people run for president, the voters know, okay, I'm going to get a president who will do what I want, presumably at the Treasury Department, at the Commerce Department, at the Defense Department, at the Department of Justice. And it should be one thing people think about. You know, what American people need to understand isn't just, oh, Biden's a nice guy, I want to have a beer with him. Well, guess what, honey? You're not going to have a beer with the President of the United States. The Secret Service is going to let you anywhere near enough to the President of the United States to have a beer with him. So stop thinking about that. Instead, think about, I need to make a very careful decision about somebody who not only will be making decisions about life and death with U.S. intelligence agencies, the U.S. Department of Defense, et cetera, but also somebody who's going to be in charge of the Department of Justice, the FBI, the entire federal criminal system, our federal penitentiaries, et cetera, and make a very careful decision as to who's the best person to handle all of that. And then once that person is elected, the person can put in the person who's best to be Attorney General. What I wouldn't want to see is, for example, having elected Attorney General and have President Donald J. Trump, and then maybe somebody running for Attorney General would be Attorney General Susan Rice, or Attorney General, how about this, Attorney General Bill de Blasio. And so you've got Trump in the White House with Bill de Blasio running the Department of Justice. You know, it could happen. Crazier things have happened. So I believe in an executive branch run by one executive without people coming in with other ideas other than what the president wants to implement.
Well, you know, there's an analogy that if you recall, the FBI was sort of very independent under J. Edgar Hoover, but after the abuses, there was a big change. The FBI now is a director is appointed for 10 years.
Yep.
So the analogy would be maybe some compromise could be made regarding the head of the Justice Department, somewhere in between direct appointment by the president and an elected. Perhaps set up some kind of qualifications to have that job.
Well, what I'd rather see is for somebody like Donald J. Trump to come in and hose out the Department of Justice. And if you are just doing your job and you're going after criminals, great. But if you're sitting in your office basically acting as a campaign surrogate for either campaign, or the Democrat campaign or the Republican campaign, and you're doing things like intervening in potential search warrants and warning targets of search warrants. Hey, the investigators might be coming after you. You've got, in the Biden case, I think they've got 6 banks issuing 170 different suspicious activity reports. The Department of Justice doesn't seem to have any interest in this at all. At that point, people like that are not serving the American public. They're serving a particular political agenda, and specifically a partisan political agenda. And people who are doing that, if they're breaking the law, they need to be arrested and indicted and imprisoned if they're convicted. And if they're not doing that, but they're acting unethically, they need to be disbarred. Their law licenses need to be shredded on national television, as an example to others.
Well, our prosecutor's office here in New York City, all 5 boroughs, you have New York City police officers effecting an arrest using necessary force, and then all of a sudden the prosecutor is locking them up and indicting them on assault charges. It's like reverse. It's unbelievable.
I think in many respects we're living in upside down landia, as I call it. Things that would have been unthinkable even 5 or 3 years ago are happening on a daily basis. And you've got these cops, you say, are using necessary force. They're getting charged with assault. You've got this tremendous situation with Alvin Bragg, their so-called, using air quotes here, prosecutor, district attorney here in Manhattan. People get engaged in all sorts of crimes. They get arrested, and he's got them back on the street, within a couple of hours. We wouldn't want to interfere with these people's criminal careers. So please go back on the streets and return to your criminal careers, sir. Sorry to inconvenience you with that arrest. And you got people who get. I think we had a case just the other day of somebody who was, if I remember correctly, he was arrested for beating up his girlfriend. He was released. He then went onto the subway. I think he stabbed somebody, if I'm not wrong, and he was released again. I mean, what does it take to get somebody to commit a crime, get arrested, and get thrown behind bars? I mean, do you have to shoot somebody in the face on live television? I mean, short of anything like that, you're back on the street to continue your criminal career with a pat on the back and almost like a high five from the DA of Manhattan.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
That's the state legislature with the bail reform.
Yep.
The DAs, they have a great excuse. They can hide behind this bail reform. A guy like Bragg has a perfect built-in defense. I'm doing this because my hands are tied.
Yep.
So it has to start at the state level. We've got to get everything changed.
It does. And Eric Adams early on he said he wanted to overturn all this bail reform stuff. So he hopped on an Amtrak train, I guess, with his press secretary. They went up to Albany. They were laughed at. They were told, okay, go back to City Hall, little boy, was kind of their attitude. What he should have done is gotten on a train with himself, his press secretary, and probably 500 crime victims, all with pictures of their dead relatives. Here's my dead mom, here's my dead husband, here's my dead wife, dead children, whatever, and have those people march on the state capitol and embarrass the hell out of these people, put tremendous pressure on them. And as Senator Everett Dirksen, the late great senator from Republican of Illinois, said, when I feel the heat, I see the light. And I think if he had made these people feel the heat, they might have seen the light. That's the kind of strong leadership I think a lot of us expected of Eric Adams, not just him and one aide going in and shaking a couple of hands and walking away empty-handed.
Well, he should have done what Giuliani would have done, called him out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And gone public with it. There's a lot he could do.
A lot
by putting people under pressure. For example, the city council passed these ridiculous laws, hindering the police. Taking away the defense of qualified immunity, the chokehold, the chest compression. He could have his legal department introduce legislation to overturn that. And even if the city overrides a veto of his, he still makes it public and he calls them out.
Absolutely.
He doesn't do that.
He does not. And look, one thing politicians can do is, as they say, make legislators famous. So he can point to the people who are the state legislators from New York City, people in the city council, and say, contact State Senator Smith, contact City Councilman Jones, and tell them, stop making the streets of New York dangerous, and run a PR campaign. And he'd be doing the right thing. There's a chance he might succeed, and if nothing else, we could say at least he tried, and that's very good for his popularity and eventually his career. But again, this is the kind of leadership we expected out of him. He can do this at no cost. Doesn't cost any money, but we don't see this level, this full-blown commitment. This is what I think a lot of people expect out of him that we're not seeing.
Thank you, Deroy. Deroy, how can our audience listen to you, follow you? They want to, continue to listen to what you have to say, which is all great stuff.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm on Fox News Channel and Fox Business Network 2-3 times a week. So watch Stuart Varney's show, watch Kudlow's show, watch The Bottom Line. Those air at between 9 and 12. for Varney, 4 p.m. Eastern for Kudlow, 6 p.m. for The Bottom Line. Those are probably the three shows I do most often. I appear in other shows from time to time. My op-eds appear in the Daily Caller, Newsmax, FoxNews.com, Daily Signal, probably most often. You certainly can just Google my name. You'll see all sorts of things pop up, things I've been writing since, I guess, probably all the way back to about the year 2000. So you can probably sit, that's about when, I mean, I've been writing really since 1978, but in terms of stuff that's online, it's about 2000 onwards. So you can probably look up my name and find hundreds and hundreds of articles on these topics we've discussed and many others.
I think you should run for public office.
I agree.
Well, I'll tell you what I normally say when people make that very kind suggestion, which is if nominated, I will not run, but if elected, I will serve.
Perfect. Thank you. Captain?
Somebody else said that years ago. I don't
Years
know.
ago, I think, yes. Some wise man.
No, I think that you are a super interview, and we thank you very much for coming in and telling us about what's going on.
Ladies and gentlemen, Deroy Murdock, thank you so much for being here. You were an awesome guest, and once again, thank you.
Thank you very much. Great to be with you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for listening to another episode of Cop Talk. You can follow us at Cop Talk WABC, at Cop Talk WABC on Twitter. And until next time, please be safe out there. Thank you.